My name is Brother Ernie Lewis. I'm one of the elders here at the congregation. We want to certainly welcome you in. Certainly all of our family members here at LP, but also our visitors that are with us. We are excited to present this information to you in the hopes of helping people navigate through some very difficult times that will face all of us at one day or another. And we're very fortunate in this congregation. We have 3 people that are listed here that have extreme experience in each of these conversational areas. They're going to go through and they're going to present some information. They're also going to allow for some questions, and they will provide answers. So it will be both Q and A as we go forward. We want this to be as interactive as possible, but there is a fair amount of information we want to make sure that we make available. I believe that there are some packets, some folders with some of the information that will be left behind as well. And again, we just want to express our thanks to you for coming out and being part of this inaugural event. Hopefully we'll continue to do this. Our intention here, as we continue to interact with the community, is once a quarter to put on informational seminars of some sort or another to be helpful, and as well as to continue to allow ourselves to get to know each other and to continue to do things one for another. Before we begin, we always want to go to God in prayer on behalf of everything we do. We're going to ask one of our other elders, Brother Johnny Stevenson, to lead us in an opening word of prayer, and then I'll come back and we'll get started. Brother Stevenson.
Let us bow. Heavenly Father, we come to you this morning so thankful that you have blessed us and gave us safe passage to bring us to this point. We thank you, dear God, for just loving us and always doing the best for us, dear God. Heavenly Father, as we pray, we are so thankful that you have blessed these individuals who will come to present, that you've given them the talents and the skills, Heavenly Father, to equip themselves to help us, dear God, and when difficult times happen, Heavenly Father. We know that it's always wise to prepare, so we just ask that you would be with us, that we might listen attentively, and not only for ourselves, but we may be able to share with others who we come across that might have some concerns. We just pray that you would be with us all. When we leave here this evening or this afternoon, we'll be able to look in our hearts and say it was good for us to be here. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. As you can see on this slide behind me, we have 3 well-qualified presenters. Each of them are going to focus on a particular area. First, we have Sister Marcia Lewis, who is a licensed clinical social worker. She'll be talking about some of the services associated with things like elder care, et cetera. And then we have Brother David Lewis, who's also an elder here. He's an attorney. He'll be going over some of the legal things that you need to be thinking about as you have to kind of walk down this journey. Some things that might make things a little bit easier as you do with that versus if you don't do them, it's going to make things a bit more complicated. And then at the end, Sister MaryLou Stevenson, who's been working in this space for well over 25 years, is going to help us think about memorial options. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's how the closure is going to occur for most of us. And so, again, we're going to share this information with the hopes of it being helpful and that you can hang on to some of the leave-behind material for future questions and things of that nature. Without further ado, then I'm going to bring up Sister Marcia Lewis, and let's go ahead and get started. Let's give her a round of applause just to get ourselves warmed up.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I've also worked for many years as a medical social worker, and I'm always surprised at all the resources that are available that a lot of people don't know about. And you wouldn't know about it unless you're kind of working in the field or you need some help with something. So that's the information that I am going to share today, is a lot of the resources that I've come to learn along the way. In your packet, there's 3 pieces of blank paper, 1 for each speaker. You can write your questions down. At the end of each speaker, there'll also be a time for questions and answers. So I'm going to ask, if you have questions, write them down, and hopefully we'll get to them. If it's something more specific and it needs more time, then all 3 of us are also available afterwards, after the seminar, if there's something more particular that we can help you with. So I want to share a couple of vignettes that are typical that we experience or we hear about. So this is Ben's story. Ben's been married for 47 years. He always managed the family's money, but since his stroke, Ben's not able to walk or talk. His wife, Shirley, feels overwhelmed. Of course, she's worried about Ben's health, but on top of that, she has no idea what bills should be paid or when they are due. So this is a classical example of what happens because no one plans for these things to happen. You don't plan to be sick. You don't plan to have a stroke. Who's going to pay the bills? Is all that information in some place where someone can find it? So that's important, and we will touch on that. Another story, this is Louise. Across town, 80-year-old Louise lives alone. One night, she fell in the kitchen and broke her hip. She spent a week in the hospital and 2 months in rehab in a rehabilitation nursing center. Even though her son lives across the country, he was able to pay her bills and handle her Medicare questions right away. That's because several years ago, Louise and her son made a plan about what he should do in case Louise had a medical emergency. So that's what today is about, planning, planning, planning. You don't know when an emergency is going to happen, and you want to answer a lot of these questions before you need the help. It's very sad to see someone who's now in the hospital and you're in ICU and everybody's around the bed. What do we do? This is Dad who handled everything. We don't know where his stuff is, so that's a problem. So that's some of the things that we want to cover today to help you be prepared. So the first thing that I want to cover is insurances that are available to seniors. Everybody knows about Medicare. If you have worked in this country and you've put into the Medicare Social Security system, you're eligible for Medicare when you turn 65. So we know about Medicare. There are a lot of questions is what are the premiums about? The premiums fluctuate. There's a standard of $185 a month, but it goes up from there based on your income. And I have that information, I think. So then the other time that you can get Medicare is if you're permanently disabled. So there's some things which make you automatically eligible if you have paid into the system. So dialysis is something that automatically makes you eligible for Medicare because that makes you disabled if you have paid into the system, which means there are some people who have not paid into the system. They are disabled. What do? They apply for SSI or Medi-Cal, but they do not get Medicare. Now, that dialysis patient who's disabled, after they turn 65, they will be eligible for Part A, which is just hospitalizations only. So that's the other time that you can get. And then the premiums I talked about. Another thing with premiums, and now that we're getting to that age, so I'm learning a lot more, is that the premiums, I didn't know that the premiums go up based on your income. I thought everybody was at the same level, which seems very unfair because you've paid into the system, and if you already made a lot of money, then you paid a lot into the system, and now you got to pay more. But I won't get on that soapbox, but that's the reality of the situation at this time. So how do you apply for Medicare? You can apply online. You can apply with a phone interview. You can schedule an appointment at the Social Security office. Medicare, I do a lot of applications. I did a lot of applications for Medi-Cal, for all kinds of other things. I could never get into the system for Medicare. It would ask so many questions. So it was easier to either talk to a broker or call Social Security Administration, make an appointment. If you call, be ready to wait at least an hour. What I tell people is plug in your phone, turn on a movie, put it on speaker, or go wash the dishes or do something because it's going to take a long time. Now that's a problem because seniors are very impatient. So I will get a lot of seniors who say, I waited for 10 minutes and nobody picked up. I'm done. I'm not applying. But you're missing out on the resources that are available to you. So we have to adjust to this is how the system works now. People are not available to talk to you. You have to leave a message. You have to wait for them to call back. It's not user-friendly anymore. So we have to become tech-savvy in order to get these services that are available to us. So that's the way that you can apply for Medicare. On the website, there's a full table of what your premiums will be, at what level, and those kinds of things. So a word about brokers. Brokers are very helpful. However, I think you should have some information, some knowledge before you speak to a broker because they are only going to push what they want to push. So they're not getting paid from you, but they're going to present those insurances that they're comfortable with. But the more information you have, the better equipped you are to ask questions about what is the best suited for you and your situation. So Medi-Cal, eligibility is income-based. So Medi-Cal, a lot of people say that, I hear this all the time, I don't know if I have Medicare, Medicaid, Medi-Cal, I don't know. You know, I hear that all the time. Medicare is what you get 65 and over. Medicaid is the same as Medi-Cal. The rest of the country calls it Medicaid. California decided to be cute and say, oh, let's call it Medi-Cal, California, but it's the same thing. So that also makes it confusing because people are saying, well, which one do I have? If you have Medi-Cal, you have Medicaid. It's the same thing. Medi-Cal is income-based, so if you're single, then $1,271 is the maximum that you can make to have Medi-Cal with no share of cost, which means you might qualify if you're a little above that, but you're going to have a share of cost. And some people are like, oh, I don't want to take it if I have a share of cost. However, once you qualify for Medi-Cal, there's a lot of other things that you're now eligible for, which you don't get under Medicare. For example, Medi-Cal pays for caregiving. Medi-Cal pays for transportation to all of your medical appointments. Medi-Cal pays for long-term care if you need to be put into a facility. Medicare does not pay for any of these things. So these are additional things that are coming out of your pocket. But if you qualify for Medi-Cal and say you have a share of cost of $500, you're like, oh, that's too much. However, say your mom or somebody needs caregiving, say it's 3 hours a day. $20 an hour, $60 a day. What is that? $300 a week? $1,200 a month? So, but if you are paying that $500 to Medi-Cal because you're eligible, if you have Medi-Cal. If you have Medi-Cal and you're paying $500 a month, and you're like, that's a lot of money, but you're also saving because you're not paying for the IHSS, in-home supportive services. You're not paying additional for transportation. Transportation, if you are a dialysis patient and you're needing transportation, those vans that come by cash is minimum $50 each way. So that's $100 a day. $300 a week, whatever, $1,200 a month. But if you qualify for Medi-Cal, even with a share of cost, you're still saving. So that's just something to think about. The other thing to know about Medi-Cal is that if you are paying for medical expenses, that reduces your income, which also makes you eligible for Medi-Cal with no share of cost. So if, say, you're paying for your oxygen, you're paying for additional medical insurances, you're paying to rent a hospital bed, you're paying co-payments for treatments, all of those things reduce your income, which also may make you eligible for Medi-Cal with no share of cost, which is what you want. So there's a lot of loopholes that people don't know about. So if you think you qualify, you should apply. But then if you get a letter that says you qualify, but you owe this much, consider maybe there's some other options for you at that point. The other thing is if you do qualify for Medi-Cal without a share of costs, Medi-Cal will pay your Medicare premiums, right? So that's another $185 into your account, into your checking account, because Medi-Cal is now paying your premium. So there is a benefit to at least try to apply if you think that you might be eligible. There's also a thing called Medigap insurance, which is very expensive now. So you can have straight Medicare, and you need a secondary because Medicare only pays 80%, so everything else is coming out of your pocket. So you might need a Medigap, or they call it supplemental policies now, which picks up the 20%, but those have an additional premium. So you're paying for Medicare, but then you also have to pay for the premium for the supplemental, which can become very costly. We talked Social Security, talked about income. So you can apply for Social Security at 62 and above, but you know the longer you wait, the more you get. So what is SSI? Social Supplemental Income. This is another, now originally when it started, like it says, it was a supplement to what you got from Social Security. So if you got a check and they're like, it's kind of low because you didn't work a lot, maybe you're only getting $900 a month, so they're going to give you another $600 on SSI if you qualify. All of this is income-based. The problem is they did not realize that people were going to try to live on SSI because they couldn't afford anything else. So many people are walking around trying to live on $900 a month. And you got to pay rent out of that. And you got to pay for food and all of these things. So they just changed it maybe about 5 years ago. Originally, when they gave you SSI, they would not give you anything else because they said, we're giving you additional. Why do you need, now you need food stamps? It doesn't make sense. We're giving you additional. But there's so many more people who live on SSI as their primary source of income. So they finally changed that about 5 years ago where you can be on SSI, you can apply for CalFresh food stamps as well. So that's another benefit for you. So can you work retired? That's a common question. Yes, you can work, and if you are 65 and above, you can work and keep all your money. If you're less than 65, say you start receiving Social Security income at 62. If you then decide you want to work, they will take some back. There's a formula. Oh, here it is. So before full retirement age of 65, any income above $62,160 is going to be deducted. Anything above that, they're going to take back a third, I think. Or no, yeah, every $3 you make, they take $1 over that $62,000 for the year. So that's something to think about too. But you are eligible to work. I wanted to talk about just the care that's available because as you get older, you need more care. And what does that look like? People get very confused with what home health and caregiving, that's the big differentiation. Caregiving and home health. Home health has to come from a doctor has to give an order to say you need a registered nurse, you need physical therapy, you need occupational therapy, you need a bath aid, whatever. That comes from the doctor. Many of these HMOs will say, oh, we provide caregiving. In my 10 years working in medical care, I never got an insurance to pay for caregiving, even though the insurances tell you they pay for caregiving. The caregiving they're talking about comes from the doctor has to say you need this or this or that. And you'll say, but mom's home by herself and she can't provide a meal and she can't, they don't care, right? The only thing the insurance covers is if it's medical. The fact that mom is home by herself is not a medical concern. That's a caregiving concern. So how are you going to pay for caregiving? Because all of these aides, if you've ever had them come to your house, they stay a maximum of 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. They do what they got to do and they leave. They're not there to help you with anything else but what the doctor wrote down. So then how do we provide caregiving for people? So I talked about in-home supportive services, which is something through Medi-Cal. It's a very good program. Other agencies, there's private agencies. The government has made social services that your first line of defense is your family. So don't talk to the government unless you have talked to your family. So they really push you to talk to your family. Use your family resources. And if you don't have any insurance, that's what you have. And long-term care insurance you can have, but even that's difficult. It costs for sure, but you have to provide that you are sick enough that you need some long-term care, and then you have to be able to show receipts that you've been paying for long-term care or that you've been paying for caregiving for that to work. But that is available to you. The other thing I wanted to talk about was hospice versus palliative. That's confusing sometimes. And as we get older, that's something that we run into, right? So palliative care is you are very sick and you need a lot of help, a lot of support. And so palliative care gives you that wraparound support that you need, extra help that you need. Hospice, you also get a lot of support, but hospice, you now have a diagnosis that says you could pass away in 6 months. And so the help you get under hospice is comfort care. They're not trying to heal you from what you have because they've determined you can't be healed. So hospice is how do we keep you comfortable until those last days. Palliative, they're still trying to get you back to a general sense of health. So that's the difference between those two. Transportation, again, other services I kind of wrote down here. You have a paper in your folder called Resources that has a lot of these things. Transportation is a big issue for when you get older. A lot of people, their vision starts to change. Mind is fine, but now I can't see, so that's a problem. People get anxiety and anxious and don't want to be on the roads driving at night. The lights all of a sudden look like stars. How do I know this? Because it's happening. So things are happening, and so transportation becomes an issue. So what are our options for transportation? In LA County, every city has a dial-a-ride. You can call, get an application. It's very easy. There's not a lot of stuff that you have to give them. And I think the rides are now $1 each way or something like that. That's an option. But they only take you within the city limits. But say you need to go to the grocery store, whatever you want to do, dial-a-ride is a good option for that. If you need to go further than, access transportation is very good. It's about, $3.50, Mona, each way? $3.50 up to 25 miles, I think. After 50 miles. There's a cutoff. Maybe it's 50 miles where it's more. Like you can go up to 100 miles on access, but you will pay a little bit more, maybe $6.75 or something like that. Each way. It's a good option for transportation services, and it's not just to doctor's appointments. A lot of the HMOs will provide transportation as well, but they only provide transportation to doctor's appointments. Access is open to everything. Go-Go Grandparents I found a few years ago, and it's basically Uber for seniors. Go-Go Grandparents, because if you've ever used Uber, it's all digital, right? It's all technology. You can't speak to anybody. So if you don't know how to use a smartphone and you can't see it and it's all crazy and it's not making sense, you can call Go-Go Grandparents because there's a live person, but it basically acts the same. You give them the address of where you're going, they take your credit card, they set it up for you. So that's a good option too. Prescriptions is a lot of money right now and going into paying for our medications. There is something called low-income subsidy. That's through Medicare. A lot of people don't know about low-income subsidy. So you may not qualify for Medi-Cal. Your insurance is kind of high maybe for Medi-Cal, but you're still having a lot of issues with your medications. You can apply for the low-income subsidy. If you are approved, they treat your medication as if you were on Medi-Cal. So you didn't qualify for Medi-Cal, but at a higher level, you qualified for low-income subsidy. So now your medications are $3 or $5, like all the other Medi-Cal recipients. It's worth looking into, but I will say that the gap in the income is getting smaller and smaller and smaller of who they will qualify. So people that I have applied for to say you should qualify, they come back with a letter that says no, they did not qualify. And so that it's getting harder, but it is available. The other thing that I recommend to people is many of these very expensive medications your doctor has prescribed you, and you're older, so you're taking more medications, and they're a lot more expensive. Sometimes the manufacturer of that medication provides patient assistance. So you can call or go online, look directly to the manufacturer, see if they have a form for your specific medication, take it to the doctor, get it signed and approved and send it back, and you will get a discount for that medication, which is a big savings as well. So years ago there was a donut hole, like you had a certain number of money. After that, you went into what they called a donut hole, where you were paying full price for all of your medication before you hit the catastrophic level where they covered your medication again. That has finally been eliminated as of January 1. That was a big pain. A lot of the things just didn't make sense to me. Someone's on a fixed income, and now they're taking medication, but you're telling them that you're not going to pay for the medication anymore for a period of time until you exhaust all of their money, and then they'll come back in and pay again. So they eliminated that. Great. There's some other housing options I wanted to talk about. Every city has what they call money for home rehabilitation, making your home accessible to a senior. So if a senior owns that home and they are on a fixed income, but now they need their doors widened because they're in a wheelchair, or they need some type of access in their bathroom, they may be eligible for a grant from the city who will come in and make those changes free of charge to you. So I do have in your packet, I gave the actual person to talk to in the city of La Puente. Every city has it. You would have to call your city and ask for you call City Hall, ask for the Home and Housing and Community Development Department, and then continue to ask, do you have monies available for seniors for their homes, and find out what that qualification is. That is available to you. Because it's cheaper for the government to keep you in your home than it is to put you in a long-term facility and then have to pay and supplement it that way. So they do as much as they can to keep you independent and as home as long as possible. Assisted living facilities, boarding cares, memory care, those are all options, that now mom or dad can't stay at home anymore. What are we going to do? We don't have the availability to bring them into our home. What are their options? And they're all very costly. Boarding cares are very expensive. Memory care, assisted living, those are all very expensive. They can be $8,000 a month, $10,000 a month. It's $12,000 a month. It goes up from there. But still, you might have somebody who's in need. So there is the assisted living facility waiver. So if you are on Medi-Cal and you're a senior, you can qualify for the assisted living waiver, which means, so the waiver means there's certain facilities that buy into this program or that qualify to be in this program. So the government will supplement what your stay is. So if your stay is $6,000, you only make $1,800 a month, the government pays the rest. So that's what the waiver is, for you to stay in a good facility. The wait time is very long. If you're coming from the community, you're at home or somewhere, it's at least a year wait. But if you are in a facility already, say you're in a nursing home or something, then you kind of pop up to the top of the list because they need to get you out of the nursing home. It's cheaper for them to pay for you for a waiver than to keep you in the nursing home. Subsidized apartments, we all know what Section 8 is. What is it? The Housing and Urban Development gives you, that's where you apply for Section 8. Section 8, we know, can be a 10-year wait for housing. Subsidized apartments is also through HUD. However, the plan is directly to the apartment complex, not to the individual applying for the waiver. So we have plenty of them around in La Puente, off of Valley, over in Industry. The wait times there are long too. However, you apply directly to the facility. You don't apply through the government. And they will take all of your information. You wait for them. If you are approved, you get a place. Your rent is 1/3 of your income. That's all. It's based, so your rent, everybody's rent fluctuates because it's based on your income. If your income is only $900 a month, then you only pay $300 a month for rent. So that is a great option also. So then my next section is just preparing for sunset. And what does that mean is, how do we prepare for this next chapter of our life? What does that look like for us? What do we need to do in order to prepare? Because it's not easy, and sometimes we have to have these conversations. And studies show that when there's a meaningful conversation about end of life, survivors report feeling less guilty, less depressed, and having an easier process of grieving. And these discussions can be very difficult, but they're also helpful. And so we talk about, how do we prepare for that conversation? I've been in the doctor's office with the doctor and a patient who didn't make any final plans, but we had to talk to the kids. The patient was on dialysis, but he was so far, all he did was sleep and go home and sleep and come back to dialysis to go home and sleep. There was nothing left. The family kept pulling him to do this because he hadn't made any plans ahead of time. So what's sad is, so we had to have a quality of life conversation with the family. Is your dad really having a good quality of life if he's just sleeping all the time? He's not there cognitively. But if dad had have made these plans ahead of time, if he would have maybe had the conversation, had an advanced care directive and all of these things, that gives ease to the family because it avoids all the arguing and fighting. There's feuds that happen. You pulled the plug on mom and we didn't think she was ready, and that's forever indelible in that family and causes a lot of pain. So if the people can set these things up ahead of time, then you can avoid those things. I have a video. My assistant is going to pull it up for me.
I live to serve.
So the video talks about how to have this conversation. In your packet also, there are 2 forms. One is how to have the conversation with actual spaces to answer those questions. There's another form called the age page. It's from the AARP, which talks about getting your affairs in order. What forms should I have? Where should I have? What passwords do I need to have? Where do I need to have these things? What do I need to put together so that my family knows what to do? So there's also a handout in there about that. This is a video that kind of talks a little bit about it.
Talking to loved ones about their end-of-life care is a sensitive topic, but if you start the conversations early, it will help you be prepared. It's also easier to approach the subject when you're not in a crisis. Hi, I'm Amy Goyer, AARP's family and caregiving expert. Here's a helpful guide on how to start a conversation about end-of-life care. First, prepare yourself. Do your homework about end-of-life issues and options. Jot down some thoughts and suggestions. Next, make a plan about the best way to approach your loved ones. For some, a more indirect approach works better. Tell them you saw this video. You can say, it made me realize that we hadn't talked about this, and I want to be prepared to be supportive to you. Or, if your loved ones respond to a more direct approach, simply ask if you could talk about their end-of-life wishes. That way they can think about it ahead of time. Then, think about the basics. Who should join the conversation? When would be a good time? Where should it take place? And what should you talk about? Here are 5 key questions you can ask. First, have you made any plans or thought about your wishes at the end of your life? If not, do you have your healthcare advance directives in place? And have you done any financial or estate planning? Then, if you should become ill, what's most important about how you live in the last phase of your life? Where do you want to be, and whom do you want to provide your care? Lastly, have you thought about your funeral plans, memorial service, or celebration of life? When you have the conversation, make sure your loved ones are comfortable. Be calm and supportive. If they need a bit more time to think, be patient. And if you encounter resistance, that's okay. Listen and validate their feelings. You likely won't cover everything in one conversation. Generally, it's a series of conversations, and they get more comfortable over time. For now, reflect on what went well and what you'd like to talk about in the future. The idea is to talk early and often. Early before a crisis happens, and often because your loved one's wishes may change. Remember, these conversations matter. They provide peace of mind for you and your loved ones, ensuring that their wishes are known and honored at the end of their life. For more support and resources on planning end-of-life care, go to aarp.org/endoflife.
My assistant suggested that maybe I stop at this point, maybe ask a few questions before I go to the next section. So, are there any questions so far? I know I've said a lot and I talk fast when I'm nervous. So, any questions thus far? Yes, sir.
You did say a lot, which is great. But I'm sitting here saying, I don't know all that. Who do I go to? I mean, I go to you, and you walk me through all this stuff, or
I did put my number on the bottom of that paper. I put my work number, not my personal number, just in case. So, but yeah, there's a lot. It's a lot of information. I also put a lot of web pages there so that you can actually pull up a lot of these things and spend some time with it. And yeah, ask your questions. I think Brother Turner has a question, Ernie.
Okay.
On your handout here.
Hang on, so I get the mic.
On your handout, the in-home supportive care services, isn't that operated regionally, like LA County has theirs, San
Yes.
Bernardino? But you have one number down there.
Because we're in LA County.
That's LA County? Okay. Because I'm kind of familiar with that because I did that for my father-in-law, and I know it's different, LA
It
and
is.
San
And
Bernardino.
even if you move, they can transfer it.
Yeah.
That's a process. But they can transfer from one county to another.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, Miss Sister Fletcher.
Yes.
Hold on for the mic.
Here it comes.
You had mentioned about being in the system or not in the system for Medicare. So could you explain that? Please?
Sure. If you have worked 40 quarters, above board working for 40 quarters, then you are in the system. You've been paying into the system. You've been paying into the Social Security system. You see on your check FICA and SSA and all those things, you are in the system. That's what that means. It's because some people work, but it's not above board, so they're not paying into the system. So they will not receive that benefit. So just because you were born in this country does not mean that you will automatically receive benefits. 40 quarters is 10 years, an accumulation of 10 years over the past 60 years that before you qualify or apply for Medicare. Did that answer the question, Sister Fletcher? You look, okay.
There you go. All right.
If you were a civil service employee and you worked, let's say, on a side job, and you paid into the Social Security program, what are the benefits for these extra Medicare and Medicare programs for you?
Those who have worked like civil jobs and they have their own Social Security
Well, they
program?
have a retirement, yes.
Yes, you receive that. If you have done side jobs and you have accumulated 40 quarters,
Yes,
then you will get both.
but you don't get the full amount. Do you know the percentage?
I don't. You'd have to look on the website or something.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Keep in mind, if you're thinking of a question, someone else in the audience is probably thinking of a similar question. So go ahead and ask it. All right, great. Let's continue on then.
All right. The last part I want to talk about is mental health issues in seniors, since that's kind of my focus these days, is just the mental health side of it. And I just wanted to talk about it because we sometimes feel like just depression is kind of a normal part of getting older, and it doesn't have to be. There's a difference between sadness and depression, right? There are plenty of things that are going to make you sad and make you feel whatever you feel, right? That there's plenty of things that can happen with that. Grief is also different from depression. If you weren't sad, then you'd need to talk to somebody because you should be sad if a loved one passes. Those are normal things. Going through an illness and you're sad, that's normal. Grief is normal. But sometimes in the end of life or your senior years, you start to have a lot of losses, right? Just earlier on, maybe the kids are now gone. That's a loss. You retire. That's a loss. People that you love are passing away. Those are losses. Those losses begin to build up in you, and you can't even finish one before you're grieving the loss of another thing. And so sometimes it can turn into real depression. And so I kind of wanted to give some symptoms so that you would have an idea. How do we decide, is this real, that this person, we need to find help, they need some therapy, they need medication, or is it just a normal part of aging? Depression is not normal aging. There are answers for it. So these are some of the symptoms that you might consider. Again, this would not apply to if you're grieving, if you've lost a loved one. This is other losses that's not death. What would that look like? So basically, the way we assess for depression, like, yes, you have depression, is what's it been feeling like for the past 2 weeks? We only go back 2 weeks, and we ask these questions. Do you have a loss of interest? So say Mom loves to go to the garden and watches her plants grow. She stays busy out there. She cleans her house. She watches her soaps. She's fine. And then all of a sudden, these things are not giving her pleasure anymore. And she's not wanting to go out. She's not getting any joy from being out in the garden. She's not watching her shows. So she's lost an interest in life. Changes in weight and appetite can go both ways. After I finish, can we ask all the questions? I'll ask questions again at the end of this section. Thank you. So weight fluctuates. Interestingly, it can go either way. That one makes it difficult, because if you're depressed now and you're so depressed in your mind that your mind is not even telling you that you're hungry, so you're losing your appetite. Or if eating is comfort for you and now you find that you're so depressed and all you're doing is eating, and that's a change for you, that's also a sign of depression. The same thing goes for sleep. If your mind is so filled with what you're sad about that you can't sleep, that could be a sign of depression. Or you wake up and you say, there's no need even getting out of the bed, I'm going back to bed, so you're sleeping too much, that could be a sign of depression. Change in psychomotor activity. Usually they say, someone else says to you, you seem to be moving slowly these days. You seem to, your voice is softer. That would be something someone else might tell you. You're feeling more, you slept all night and you still have low energy. You're still fatigued. You're still dragging. Everything takes effort. I had a client just this week who told me getting up and just brushing my teeth, brushing my hair just takes a whole lot of effort now. That's a sign of depression. More feelings of worthlessness or guilt. Cognitive dysfunction, meaning you used to be able to watch your shows and stay focused on it, and you enjoyed it, and you're cognitively there, you're aware, you're focused. That's good. But at some point now, I can't even watch whatever I used to watch. I can't stay focused on it. Or I'm reading, and I'm not remembering anything that I'm reading. It's going in one ear, out the other. That's cognitive distortion. Recurrent thoughts of death. This is not always suicidal. It's not like you're saying, I have a plan. It starts with statements like, you know what, if I don't wake up in the morning, that's fine. Or, if I get in a car accident and die, that's fine. That's where it starts. Then when it gets to the other end where, oh my goodness, this person says, I have extra pills at home, I know I'm going to take them at this time, blah, blah, blah. That's yes, you're full-blown suicidal. But the signs are much sooner, much earlier, when they're saying things like, it's okay, it's just, life doesn't matter, my family doesn't love me, nobody cares about me. Statements like that should indicate to you, let me keep asking questions. Let me see what's going on with this person. And is it interfering? That's the biggest one. Someone maybe who's working, but is it interfering with your functioning? Somehow you're living your life and it's different now. It's not, your functioning has changed. And so again, difference between grief and depression. There are similarities. There are similarities, right? There's this overwhelming just sadness. That's that intense malaise. Sleeping disruption, which I talked about. Loss of appetite, weight loss, that's on both sides. But if grief, there might be increased irritability, a deep sadness, difficulty just practicing acceptance, seeing or hearing things related to loss, sends you off on grief and crying again. There's a whole thing about depression, but I won't go into all of that. But grief is different. And so we would not diagnose someone with depression if they were grieving until it was 6 months later, and they're still in the same spot of, I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can't function. Then we say, okay, we might need to get you some type of assistance or help for that. What does this look like in older adults? Okay, sure. Yes. My assistant is going to bring you the mic. I like saying that. Same as I get paid.
But, Marcia, you done such a good job. The questions I was going to ask you, you ask them and then you answer them. So that was fine. So you've covered me very well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I noticed that how you pointed out a lot of the things that happened to you, but you didn't tell me what to do. If I tell my doctor he wants to give me sugar pills and send me home, what do you suggest?
Sugar pills and go home? No. There. So depression, it would start with the doctor for sure. You would go to the doctor. A lot of people take medication only and don't take psychotherapy.
Medication is what you're recommending as well? Oh,
I am giving you all the options. I wouldn't be able to recommend anything until I sit down and assess someone to find out what are the symptoms that you decide that you need, that you want help, right? So it's not the same prescription for everyone. I don't know, am I answering the question or no?
oh, that's good. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you to clarify just one thing. You're just starting to make a distinction between medical prescription versus psychotherapy.
Yes.
And if you could perhaps go a little further on
Yes.
that.
So,
that might go a little
because I am currently working as a psychotherapist, so I do see patients through insurances and things. And so they are referred to me by their doctor, right? So they go to the doctor and they're saying they're sad or whatever it is. Most of your cards on the back has behavioral health services. That's where you will find psychotherapy, psychology, psychiatry. Everything's going to be under behavioral health. Why they don't call it psychosocial services or benefits, I don't know. Behavior throws people off. That's where you would go first, make that phone call. Your doctor would decide if you need medication, if you need to see a psychiatrist. I always recommend that you go see a psychiatrist before you take psychotropic medication because they're more familiar with what they're looking at. GPs will give you the medication, but they're not as concerned about the mental health aspect as much as the physical aspect of what depression looks like. So they're just trying, or anxiety at that. So that would be my recommendation. As always, the first step is to the doctor, and then if you're cleared, because there are some things that affect you physically, and so that's why the doctor is concerned. They're concerned more about you're not going to give yourself a heart attack because you're so anxious. They're really not concerned about the anxiety part, which is why you would talk to a psychotherapist. Awesome. So, older adults, the adjustments, which I kind of talked about. Yeah. And who gets depressed? Anyone, everyone, rich, poor, black, white, whatever, male, female, young, old. Everybody gets depressed. People across history. So, major people. We know actors and actresses who have committed suicide. But they had all the money in the world. So we know wealth does not stop you from getting depression. 21 million people in the United States suffer from major depressive disorder. In your lifetime prevalence is 2 out of every 10 people. And it is more common in medically ill of any age. Young and old have the same percentages and is very common among caregivers, more than half. Actually, when I would do home assessments, I was more concerned with the caregiver than I was with the client, with the patient. Because the caregiver is the one who's carrying all the stress. The patient is the one who's sitting in the bed and getting care. But the caregiver is the one who's 24/7 work, and I was always giving them resources for mental health services. There are caregiver resource centers. There are groups, caregiving groups, because caregiving is 24/7. You don't get a break. It's extremely hard. There are some agencies, though, that will provide respite care, meaning they have an agency that will come in for a few hours to give you time to go and do whatever. Some agencies, they might send somebody for a weekend. I don't have that information. It just popped in my head, so I couldn't tell you what those agencies are, but they are available. So how does depression impact health? This is why it's important as seniors to be aware of depression, because it does affect you physically. Depression is predictive of hip fractures, a second heart attack, a stroke. So these things, just because you're depressed, you're not moving as much, right? So you're hurting yourself physically because you're not moving because you're depressed. Treating depression reduces arthritic pain. Older adults treated for their depression are 45% less likely to die in the next 5 years. And there's a correlation with adherence and health behavior. And what that means is the more content you feel with life, the more you're willing to take your medications. You're compliant with what the doctors are telling you. If you're depressed and you're saying, what difference does it make anyway? I don't care. Then you're not taking your medication, and you're going to speed up your life, the end of your life. 30,000 deaths by suicide in the U.S., but suicide is 50% higher in older adults because of the things that we've been talking about. So we have to be aware of our seniors and the changes that they're going through and the things that they have to put up with, and is that causing them any depression? What puts people at risk for depression? Chronic medical problems. As we age, we get more medical problems. Chronic pain, poverty. I mean, every day wondering, am I going to eat today? Where my next meal is coming from? How am I going to get here? That stress is trying on people. Loss, we talked about, chronic stressors. Isolation, a lot of our seniors are isolated. They live alone, or their families have died, and they're alone. That causes depression. Limited social support, family history, previous episodes, some medications even. I want to talk about the social support a little bit, because one thing that I always suggest to all of my clients is, and I'll ask them, do you belong to a church? Do you belong to any? Because church gives you a lot of social support. Church is for a lot of other things too, but it's also, it gives you that support. It gives you something to get out the house and do. And so that's really important too, is having that support. Certain medications can cause people to feel depressed. I had a client who took something and attempted suicide, started cutting on himself because he was kind of out of his mind based on the medications. It wasn't because he was depressed. And how would we know that? Is because it is so opposite to who he was as an individual. And now he tried this. It's like, no, we had to look at what is the cause, and it was the medication that he was taking. So how do we stay well? Stay active, keep moving, stay connected with people. Strive for accurate thinking, which is not always positive. What that means is sometimes we have to make difficult decisions, which are not positive, but they're necessary. And so keeping our brain sharp in order to make these necessary decisions, looking for the good, having more of an optimistic outlook than a pessimistic outlook, living in the moment. Just what can I be thankful for this moment? What can I be grateful for this moment? Having that type of mindset, trying to look for positives and not complaining less, criticizing less, expressing gratitude every day. And so I put on the side just senior centers are a place, there's a lot of things that go on in senior centers. Again, faith-based places, churches have activities that people can get involved in. Whatever you can do, stay connected with your family as much as you can. Just things that we can do to stay well. So the take-home message from this is depression is fairly common, but it is not normal. There is help. Depression is a medical illness. It is not weakness. It does not mean that you're crazy. Depression leads to many adverse consequences. Depression is very treatable. Help is available. And if you or your loved one is depressed, get help. There is help available, even if it's just talking to somebody. I have a client, sometimes I have a couple clients, I'm like, I don't even know why you're here. Like, they don't really have any issues, but they just enjoy having somebody to talk through something and process something. Both of these clients who I'm talking about are a little bit older, but they live alone. And so they just come on just to talk about things. And my job, though, is to say, what are my treatment goals? What am I working towards? And so I'm trying to pull out from what they're telling me. But they just enjoy having somebody to talk through some of these things that they're going through. So that is the end of my presentation. Are there any final questions at all? There's a hand there. Hold on, please.
as you mentioned about depression, just because you're a child of God, that doesn't say you can't get depressed, because as you read certain of the Psalms, we find David was a man of God, but when you read some of his Psalms,
Psalms 142.
yeah, you find that he was getting depressed. So,
Yes.
you know, and another thing is like, I find for me, having my brothers and my sisters coming out here, sometimes I'm so busy I'd have to take the next week and rest up. Being around our family members, getting involved in you know, the things that we do here keeps me, I don't know about anyone else. I don't know.
Yes. No, I really appreciate you said that. I had a book idea, and it was called Christians Get Depressed Too, because it's not something that we talk about often. We don't hear it from the pulpit. What I've heard from the pulpit is, why are you sad? You should be happy. You're a Christian. But I got things in my life that's making me sad. So and it's normal, but I'm so glad that you brought that up, because we all have things in our life that make us sad, that make us depressed. But again, feeling that we use that word depression to really mean I'm sad, which is the difference between the major depression is what I was talking about that. But I do believe that as Christians, it would be beneficial for us to acknowledge and accept and talk about the fact that we do get sad, we do get depressed, we do have heavy things in our life to make us sad and depressed. Question here?
Marcia, you had a list of things that had to do with depression. Okay, is there like one or two that you should be? If it's just one, should you try to say, oh, they may be depressed, or is it like, two or three things that they do?
Oh, you said to stay well?
Yeah.
My one and
no,
two?
The symptoms. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Not yeah.
This one.
That one, right.
Yes.
Let's say if I'm looking at, okay, I'm home, MaryLou is not acting right, okay? I'm trying to make this practical. And should I say, okay, changing sleeping pattern? Should there just be one thing, or should I go like
No,
look
you
for
need
two or three
at
things?
least you need at least 4.
At least 4. Okay.
You need
I
at
see
least
now.
4
Thank you.
to receive that diagnosis. But to your point, I am seeing changes in my eating or
Right.
my sleeping. That's still a clue for you to say, maybe I do need to do some changes. Maybe I need to look at my coping skills. What am I doing to help myself feel better in the moment? So it's not like you need to get the diagnosis of depression to make some changes.
Okay, that's it. And this is, sometimes, let's say you've lived with a person so long, sometimes it's also good to get help from somebody else.
Yes.
Because you may just shine it on and say, that's just her or him or whatever. But anyway,
Agreed,
that wasn't
yeah.
a question.
That was a good point, that, sometimes you're so close to your mate that they don't see, or they don't pick up on it. Or you want somebody else outside of your mate to talk to, because, you love your mate, but sometimes you got to say, he making me mad. And I can't say that to him, but it'd be good to have somebody else to say it to. Okay, whichever. Having a safe space to talk about that. Any other questions? Like I said, I'll be around to answer any. Yes, ma'am. Hold on for the mic, please.
Is there a website where you can go and get this information if you don't have time to write it down?
Yes, it will be on our church website,
Okay,
and then we will give you that information.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, wait, one more. Brother Simpson?
Actually, I got 3 more.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask, what's your chair website? What is it?
Oh, LaPuenteChurchofChrist.com? Is that what you're asking for?
Uh-huh.
It's on the front of the book.
Okay.
On the sticker is the website.
Looking but not reading.
That's okay. I think with the mic.
When you were talking about Medicare and Medicaid,
Yes.
it seems like if you qualify for Medicaid, you get a lot of benefits. And then if you have assets, you won't be able to qualify for it, or is it just based on your income?
They allow up to, I have that somewhere, they allow up to like $60,000 of benefits now. $62,000 of benefits now. And before, you could not have anything more than $2,000 in the bank. You were allowed to have your home. You're allowed to have a car. But you can't have multiple. Like, if you have rental property, you're not going to qualify. If you have over $62,000 in, like, an IRA and all of these other things, you're not going to qualify.
Okay, do you know if they have like the 3-year, what was it called? 3-year, where if you give away your assets within 3 years, they can bring it back. I forgot.
Estate recovery
Yeah.
is the word you're looking
Yeah.
for.
You know if that, what I'm trying to think about is how do you get rid of your assets so maybe you do qualify for Medicaid?
So there's also something called an elder law care. I'm not sure if you'll touch on that, but there is elder law care. It's a different type of legal services where they can help you reallocate your money, so to help make you eligible. Yeah, that's the best I can say because I'm not sure it's all legal.
Oh, okay. I don't want to do anything illegal. I'm not.
Yeah.
I was just wondering how can you, how can you qualify for things when you do have assets? And I actually overheard our brother Kenny talking about his mom, and I don't know if he wants to share that, but I thought it was kind of interesting that you can qualify for some things, and then they'll even let you keep some of your money. I think Kenny was saying $300. They give you, Kenny?
Oh, I think you might be talking about assisted living. She's at assisted living.
Assisted living waiver.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Under the assisted living waiver, they'll take, if you're on Social Security, so it's probably on the lower end, they'll take your Social Security with the exception of maybe $300.
Yeah.
And then they pay, like you said, between $6,000 and, I don't know, it must be a cutoff for this though, $6,000 and up for you to be able to stay at this facility, get all the benefits of it and stuff like that. But you can't have any, if you have property, anything like that, they're going to take all of that.
Yeah.
You know, and if you, I wasn't aware that if you gave it away or you signed it over to another family member, they'll try to come and get it anyway, which is kind of crazy.
Well, for what I remember, you can give it away, but then you need to wait, like, and I don't know what that wait period is, if it's 6 months or a year, so that when they run it, they don't see that information under your name. That's what that is. But I understand what you're saying is that if you go to an assisted living facility, they take your check, they leave you, I thought it was like $100 or $150 for your own personal belongings. If it's $300 now, that's great. But your toiletries and all of those things you may pay for yourself. They do allow you a little bit of income. But everything else goes to the facility because they're taking care of everything. They're taking care of your food, everything. They're taking you, well, I won't say they're taking you to the doctors because they're different tiers. That's a whole nother situation inside of the facility. There's different tiers and different things to pay. Questions here?
Hang on, I've got 3 in queue. That's okay. So, do you want to give a follow-up on yours? Yeah, I do. And then I have Brother Jeff, then Sister Irvin, then Brother Mike.
We live in a time where our people are trying to pass wealth to the next generation, that's been my goal, and I think my wife's goal, to pass wealth. And you hear a lot about that, but if you get sick, all the things that you have worked for can go in just your last days in medical bills and prescriptions and things. And I don't know how you walk that line where your wealth is eaten up in your last days, keeping you alive. It kind of doesn't make sense to have to do that.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, and I have clients say, I'm trying to leave this for my grandkids. They don't want you to leave anything. They want you to use everything that you have to pay for your care. Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay, Brother Jeff?
Yes, ma'am. On the previous screen, the one where about the depression, and it was talking about complaining. That one.
Complaining. Oh.
Yeah.
I don't remember which one that was, but I don't think it was up there.
Well,
Go, what's the question?
Okay, so they saying that when you complain or you got complaints about something, that's a sign of depression. But I think it's like when you complain or you express yourself and you're not complaining, if things are just not going the way you expect it to go, and you make a comment, and people say, well, why are you complaining? Why? That depresses you more than, you know. So what I was just trying to figure out is, you know, okay, so all those other things that you had up there, I lost weight, you know, and I was going through all that. But mentally, I wasn't depressed. But then again, when I would make comments about if I asked you for a scrambled egg, you gave me a boiled egg, you know.
Right. I hear you, Brother Jeff. So remember, it was on a list, right? So you just can't pull out that one, you're a complainer, therefore you're depressed, right? So it doesn't go that way. I understand what you're saying. But we all have these idiosyncrasies. We all complain. We all have irritable days. It's putting all of these symptoms together, which would determine that, yeah, maybe we should look at depression.
Sister Marcia, do you have any insight, information on the way our new government leadership is going to affect?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
No
comment.
Who does? But anyway, I'll save that. Brother Mike.
Thank you. Sister Marcia,
Yes.
hypothetical. It's a segue and sort of off what Brother Mike was just talking about. I have a trust. In said trust, nothing is in my name. The trust has a system to.
Can I hold my finger up, please?
Yes.
Are you going to talk about trusts and wills and things? That's really under David's section. I won't be able to answer that question, but thank you.
And that section's next. So, all right, excellent.
Yes.
All right.
No more questions. Thank you.
Thank you all
Thank
very
you
much.
very much.
Thank you, Marcia. All right. Yeah. Yep, I'm taking that right now. All right. So we're going to take a short break right now. The next section is going to be the legal section. So we're going to ask that if you need to go to the restroom, whatever the case is, please do it now. Just try to come back in 5-10 minutes kind of thing. There's a lot more information we want to try to get through, and we want to allow for all the questions. So again, thank you. And the next section will be the legal section.